Welcome into another episode of the News4JAGs podcast. I'm Jamal St here, and this time I'm flying solo down here in Miami, where the Jaguars have just wrapped up joint practice with the Miami Dolphins. This one was interesting, to say the least. So joint practices, I'm a big fan of them. A lot of times you can learn a lot about just where a team is, but this practice was sloppy, but it was sloppy on both sides. I think you could just tell both teams are tired. The preseason, the training camp process has been a long one. The Dolphins, this was the third joint practice for the Miami Dolphins, so they've been busy. And you can just tell this was not maybe the joint practice that Liam Cohen and the Jaguars probably were hoping to come down here and get. Look, a lot of work was done out there on the field, and definitely some good things to take from it, but also some not so great things. But overall, I don't know if it was the cleanest of practices or one that the Jaguars were hoping they were going to get when they came down here, right? So when you walk away from it, you can look at some of the good work, and we can learn a couple of things, but we can kind of go through it. No Travis Hunter on the practice field for a lot of the team stuff. Travis still dealing with a shoulder injury. Liam Cohen did say if it was a regular season game, Travis Hunter would be playing right now. So no reason to wave the red flag or anything like that. There's nothing to be concerned with about. But if there was a concern point, maybe it's the offense. But this story could be true for both offenses. The story is the same, whether you're a Dolphins fan or you're a Jaguars fan, coming out of this practice. The defense has kind of led the day. That was just kind of what it was, and that tends to happen when there's a lot of fatigue. Let's start with probably the point that's going to get a lot of people concerned. Trevor Lawrence did throw 2 interceptions. He also threw 2 touchdowns to Brian Thomas. I could probably write off one of those touchdowns because I think it was a sack, but neither here nor there. We'll call it 2 touchdowns to BT. Brian Thomas is the highlight of this thing. When it's time to compete, Brian Thomas knows how to crank it up, and he knows how to go out there and compete. I mean, he is absolutely good. One of the touchdowns that happened in the last period, the one I'm saying I probably write off as a sack, man, he caught a slant pass and took it the distance, outran everybody, got to the other sideline, cranked it up, and was out of there. BT can really fly, and dude can absolutely compete. The other touchdown, quick slant, it was a red zone play, but again, made it kind of look easy and took care of business. But Trevor also threw 2 interceptions, one to Minkah Fitzpatrick and another one to Jack Jones. The one to Jack Jones, Brenton Strange never looked for the ball. So was that a little bit of a miscommunication? Maybe was Brenton supposed to be more prepared for that pass? Sure. But overall, 2 interceptions, not the greatest of days. The offensive line wasn't doing him any favors. Miami's defensive line was able to get to him pretty quickly. He was sacked a couple of times throughout the day, which isn't great. And the running game really didn't have a whole lot of space to operate out there. A lot of 2 and 3 yard runs here and there. Probably the best run of the day, Bashal Tutin took a handoff trying to run off tackle. He got behind Hunter Long, who helped to open up a pretty big alley for him. That's probably the best run of the day for the Jaguars offense. And that's kind of just the kind of day it was. It wasn't a clean day. Trevor Lawrence, after practice himself, just said, look, it was sloppy, and that they had a lot of work to do. And if you watched it, you could see the slop, and you could see that there was a lot of work to do. The 2 bright spots for the Jaguars offense, to me, Brian Thomas, who I think is absolutely fantastic. I know some people started to get concerned, and I don't know why. When you get some of the training camp reports and stuff, look, Brian Thomas is just fine. This is who he is. When it's time to compete, the guy shows up. BT is good. But the other guy, I think Parker Washington had a quiet, good kind of day. In the one-on-one drills, Parker was getting open. He made a couple of catches. There was one that they tried to throw back shoulder. The throw was a little off, so he didn't pull it in, but he made a nice play in the air to go try and get the football. But even during team drills, Parker continued to show up, getting open on a handful of routes, and even one seam route that probably should have been a touchdown down the field, but Trevor just missed Parker. I think Parker had a quiet, good day on the Jaguars offense. Let's flip the script to the defense, right? Defense had a little bit of a better day. Slow start out of the gates. Jarian Jones even said that, early in practice, they kind of had to settle in a little bit. The Dolphins were able to have some success out there. I know there was a Malik Washington touchdown. but they bounced back, and the defense was able to really go out there and compete. Josh and Trayvon were out there, I mean, really wreaking havoc, applying pressure to Tua. They tried throwing the ball to Jarian Jones' side a handful of times, and Jarian was able to, force a handful of incompletions. Look, I only tracked one period for Tua, but it wasn't a great period for Tua. The Jaguars defense had a pretty solid day. Coach Campanelli felt pretty good about what he saw from the defense. That's what Jarian Jones told me after practice, and so did Jordan Lewis. So that's a good sign. Look, the defense, I feel like, had a solid day. Like I said, I think the story was the same for both sides of the football, whether you were a Dolphins fan or a Jaguars fan. Defense was fine. The offense had its moments, but overall was just kind of a sloppy, not really clean day from them. Liam Cohen said the starters aren't going to play on Saturday in that last preseason game. So this is pretty much the last time we'll see these guys out on the field working before they crank it up for the regular season. So the next big thing for this team, preseason game wraps up, and then they got to trim the roster from 90 down to 53. So there are going to be a couple of tough cuts along the way and some tough decisions that have to be made. But overall, down here at joint practices, look, I think the biggest thing is that the offense just didn't maybe play as clean as you'd like to. The offensive line definitely has some things that they need to clean up, and you'd like to see them be a little bit more dominant up there. But overall, I mean, I think that it's not a huge red flag, but it's definitely something that you'd like to see them have a little bit of a better day. Here's one thing that I do want to mention before I wrap up this podcast. Trevor Lawrence said that after practice, Grant Udinski took the quarterbacks to the side and told them, you're not judged based off what happens out on the practice field or during the preseason, but they're going to be start being judged when week 1 rolls around, when the games count. And I think, to me, I'll just paraphrase it. I mean, Coach just told me, you played really bad today, but as long as you get it fixed by week 1, nobody will remember it. And I think that is the moral of this whole story, is right now you want them to kind of go through some of the growing pains, and you could see it from both sides of the football that, look, there's some fatigue. You get to this point of training camp, there's a reason why the starters aren't going to play for the Jaguars in that last preseason game. They want to rest some of these guys and try and get them ready for week 1. Jaguars are a banged-up football team right now. I mean, a lot of the rookie class is dealing with injuries. They had a handful of guys. It was a long injury list in last week's game. So they want to get those guys healthy in time for week 1, and we'll see if they can do that, and hopefully they can clean up all the sloppy and mistakes that happened out there on the field by then. A lot of work to do. We'll see how it all shakes out. If you want more Jaguars coverage, just head over to News4JAGs.com. Click on that handy dandy sports page. You can always track it down there, or you can track it down over on Sports4Jags. If you just give us a follow on Instagram, it's a good way to keep up with everything while you're scrolling. We're gonna have another episode of Teal the Show coming your way on Friday night over on News4JAGs. You'll also be able to track that down at News4JAGs.com and the News4JAGs Plus app after it airs. Friday nights, Monday nights, 11:20. We'll get you caught up on everything. So Friday, we'll try and set the table for that last preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. We'll talk a lot about what we saw here and get you ready for wrapping up the preseason. And then Monday, it's right before cuts, so we're going to be talking about cuts and guys that are going to be on the roster, who's in, who's out. We'll try and break all that down and get you ready for what you need to know around this team as we continue and get ready to go into the regular season. We'll see what happens. Look, I still feel pretty good. We'll see. We've made some record predictions along the way, and I'm not that shaken based off what I've seen yet, but week 1 would definitely change my attitude if things don't go the way it needs to against the Carolina Panthers. But that's when the games start to count, and we're almost there. It has been a long route through preseason. If you've been hanging out with us through this whole thing, we appreciate you, and hope you'll decide to continue to hang out with us and follow along throughout the regular season. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. That'll do it for this podcast, and we will see you next time.